yeah, just some of the problems you've seen facing smallholder farmers, particularly when it comes to, I guess, the lack of data and maybe risk mitigation. Would you be able to go, Fahad?
Right, sure. Right, so again, thanks for the presentation, Beanstalk team. It was pretty insightful. Just a quick intro. My name is Fahad. I'm the CEO of an agri-fintech company called iFarmer, and we try to focus on providing services to the farmers, which involves access to finance, access to inputs and advisory, and access to markets for the smallholder farmers. So one of the critical challenge that we have is, and I guess, you know, anyone who wants to work with smallholder farmers in Bangladesh faces, is that most of these farmers are not really connected, right? So they don't really use a smartphone. Most of them use a feature phone or no phone at all. So it becomes a bit difficult when it comes to working with risk mitigation strategies, like, you know, how do you collect data about these farmers and be able to send them real-time crop analytics, weather data, or those kind of stuff. And the other part is, because of that, these farmers are still risky when it comes to, you want to connect them with finance, insurance, and those kind of products. Again, the lack of data just keeps them as a risky customer for a lot of these service providers. So I just wanted to get your insight if you have had any experience of working with smallholder farmers and these kind of solutions.
I'm happy to jump in. It's not easy, you know. We're thinking about, you know, disparate, quite diverse farming communities based on size, culture, cash flow, you know, access to finance. You know, my experience is typically where you'll get a good result is where you can create, you know, catalyst points, you know, like cooperatives, but maybe loosely aligned cooperatives, to share data and to share experience. A lot of the case, it's extension of existing good agricultural practice as much as new technology. I think sometimes we get a little bit, our eyes glaze over with technology, and so it becomes a tail wagging the dog. Our approach is more, you know, how do we actually, you know, leverage what we've got to get a better solution. Even if it's 90%, that's great. Even that's pretty high. But we can always do iterations down the track. The other piece is what we see in smallholder farming systems, where you'll get the accumulation of technologies that go across groups or clusters. So drones are a great example of that. Data collection, decision support, infill decision support is a good example of that. And where, you know, where individual farmers don't have the cash flow or the access to tools or technologies to do that, you know, having, you know, the service sector, which is emerging, to come in, like agronomists or service agronomists, to actually look after maybe a couple of hundred farmers, smallholder farmers around a geography. Typically, they're sowing the same varieties, using the same fertilizer, nutrition regime, harvesting the same time, spraying the same time, and you can sort of get some leverage points on that. So, you know, that's sort of my background.
So I just want to understand, Rob, is there a particular way that Beanstalk works with startups in terms of product design or service design? And that would be really helpful to learn.
Yeah, it's there's a few touch points. In recent times, we've probably transitioned out of. I mean, we do, you know, work as mentors and program partners with a range of accelerators like Bits and Bytes in Shanghai, or Grow here in Singapore, or SproutX, or Trendlines and Sparklabs. That's as much around us keeping an eye on who's emerging through, you know, the ecosystem. It also gives us a line of sight to guys that we think they've got an application of technology that is scalable or can have impact, and we might be able to help with cap raise or growth services. You know, so to answer your question, in recent times, it's probably been more through the accelerator programs and the structured programs. That the guys that we work with on a one-on-one are typically post-accelerator, post-professional cap raise who are sort of and post revenue, or at least got LOIs where they can secure an investor, even if it's pre-series A or C. But having said all that, we also working with some great startups. They're still startups, but they're growing fast, and we're sort of supporting either on strategy or moving into that piece. Like we'll link them up, for instance, to Austrade here in Singapore and help bridge if they're looking for export opportunities. That's more about a market access point. A lot of it comes from networks. I will just be humble on that. It's very well connected. So we're sort of using different lenses. That's probably where we add value. We've got sort of different viewpoints and different lenses and different networks, and we actually piece that jigsaw together. And we might not have all of the pieces in the jigsaw, but actually we've got a pretty good picture of how it looks. Does that make sense?
Yeah, thanks a lot.
The only thing I'll add to that, Fahad, which is I think it's a very known problem across the smallholder ecosystem, whether it's in India or across Bangladesh and in parts of Asia, is recognizing that there's a lot of in India in our work there. We appreciate that each state and each even city have their own policies, regulation. Everything's different. Their culture, their language, like happens at it's all at a micro level. So it's our approach has always been about going in and have learning cap on all the time. And it's everyone's heard this before, and it probably seems quite basic, but I find we've worked with and we know of companies that go in and try to start with a solution without really clearly identifying and understanding, okay, well, where are the blockers, where the pain points are, because some of the blockers might not be something that we can solve, but it requires collaborating with someone to help work with you on that, and they're very nuanced. So yeah, I mean that speaks to I suppose what we talk about at the corporate level around challenge-led innovation, is that we're always focused around problems, and we try to create a pool. I think as much as anything is how do we go and create an aligned understanding, whether it be, as Rob says, through a cooperative, or whether it be through a FPO, a farmer FPO, producer organization that aggregate the voice, and well, at least you would hope so, but aggregate the challenges and work closely with tens of thousands of farmers at any one time. And so working with organizations like that that have foot on ground, that experience the pain points themselves, is absolutely critical.